Alright, what I have here is a little thing I developed because I made, circuit boards, and a lot of the circuit boards I didn't quite either route deep enough, or I really should have made the traces wider on top of that. But anyway, it ended up with a bunch of damn circuit boards. And of course, one of the things you get when you route, make circuit boards with a CNC router, and they're too narrow, is you get a bunch of fucking burrs in there. And try as you might, I mean, you can spend hours trying to hunt for burrs and still not find them all, or anywhere near all of them, even with using a fairly high powered microscope. It's just really makes you pull your fucking hair out. But anyway, I basically came up with this little gadget, which is a 26 millifarad capacitor, and I have it hooked to like you know, a basically two 8-volt transformers in series to make an 8-volt, and I have a bridge rectifier on it. But it's not basically a filtered supply. I actually use it, to power screw guns and stuff like that sometimes, and saws and stuff that's otherwise battery powered, but I don't have batteries for it anymore. But at any rate, it's kind of a general utility supply that I actually have this hooked up. But this is one of the accessories that I have on it, because like I said, using this connector, I've got a bunch of different things I plug into that power source. But you can see here, this is basically a 30 amp automotive relay, and I've got a little handle here which I put a little trigger switch on, which activates that relay. And I've built in a sono alert to it too, and it's got a little transistor that kind of triggers the sono alert, and makes a very piercing, unfortunately loud sound. And then I got a power resistor here that's like 3.3 ohms, I believe, just to try to keep, try to go as easy on my relay and the circuit board too. You don't want this thing, and it can be kind of tricky because you don't want this thing being so powerful that it, it's a trace blaster is what it is, if I haven't said that already. But you don't want it being so powerful that it can actually blast your traces in half. So it was a delicate balancing act between power, how much energy you deliver into this thing, but not so much so that you blow, some of the traces, because most of my traces are pretty wide. Now, if your traces were, narrower, you'd have a harder time not blasting them by accident. But because of the width of my traces and everything, it works quite well. And you just take one, this is your base probe here, and you just stick it on like a exposed copper area, and then you probe around until you find one that does that. And when you find one that's a short circuit, you push the switch, and then that's supposed to be in contact. I can barely see this shit. Son of a bitch. But that's supposed to be in contact. That's not supposed to do that. So voila. Trace blasted. Every now and then I gotta check the areas. Like, that's not conductive, so see, I mean, this thing comes in extremely handy. I mean, it saves you just hours worth of work if you fucked up and made your circuit boards like I did by accident. I made so many of these this way, it was justified creating something like this. You probably would never need one, unless you're trying to, because one of the reasons I did this, because I didn't want to wear out my machine tools, my CNC tools, the 3018 Pro or whatever. I mean, those are not well-built machines. But, just helps, it helps you, so you have to make fewer passes. But unfortunately, unfortunately, there was a price to pay for that. So, you can probe it with either side, by the way, pretty much. But, and see if you accidentally, like if I was on a trace, okay, I can hit it, but it's not powerful enough to where it blows the trace in half. If your trace was thinner, it might. you know, because I don't know what the absolute lower limit of it is. But at any rate, you know, like I said, it's a handy little, you know, little gizmo. It allows you to, you know, probe circuits, um, you know, pretty quickly. I guarantee you this one's probably got a shitload. Now, I'm not going to build these, by the way. I mean, this is really just to kind of demonstrate the circuit. You know, there's no way this doesn't have some burrs in it, surely. It's out of the same exact panel, so as all these others. Now, this seems to be relatively burr-free. Oh, there's one. It's not important, but I'm surprised this is this well routed, you know. Normally something like this I'd expect to have burrs out the wazoo. That's why when I was done with these boards, and I built several others that I had so many problems with like this, that, you know, I saw how shallow routed these were. I was like, oh, fuck that, man. I mean, this is, you know, like a dozen circuit boards I just kind of discarded because I wasn't in the mood to go through 100 miles of bad road like this. But at any rate, you know, you get the idea. And you know, there is a schematic I have for this circuit if you're interested enough, but I made modifications from my original design because my original design didn't work. But obviously I still use the circuit board, but I don't know if I made any changes. I'd have to take it off this thing to find out. But I mean, I doubt that too many of you guys would be interested. It's nice to know, though, that, you know, things like this are out there. You know, if you find yourself, you know, in a situation where, you know, similar situation, you can just blast these goddamn things. You know, let electricity find the fucking faults for you, you know. So, you know, it's just been a real lifesaver being able to, you know, to come in and, you know, trace these things down that way. Shit. Oops. I don't think this has got any faults. I think I already traced it. Yeah. This is fairly clean. Too shallow, but still fairly clean. But yeah, I just made this with a fucking nail, you know, that I think it's an aluminum nail, and or galvanized nail, and I soldered it to this board. And, you know, this was a mess trying to get this to work right. You know, I think I had some little resistors in there too for the switch, you know, to try to limit the current to the relay, given how I'm powering the whole thing. But at any rate, you know, it's just the point is something like this can be done, and it's, you know, it's not that, you know, that complicated to you know, to figure out. You're just basically trying to use a relay to dump the charge from a capacitor into your circuit board. But having said that, that power source I have can do it, you know, probably 8 amps in and of itself, certainly under short circuit. It contributes to this a little bit too, I believe, so if I recall correctly. You know, so you get not just the dump from the capacitor, but the current from your source as well, you know, briefly will home in. But that's why it's good to have a, you know, little power resistor or something to buffer it a little bit. So, because, you know, doing things like that, you know, this could dump, you know, 50, 100 amps out of this capacitor through that relay. It's a 30 amp relay. So, I mean, this isn't going to last forever. So, you know, but putting a little resistance will help you, you know, help extend the life a little bit. But at any rate, you know, that's just a, you know, a creative solution to a pain in the ass problem that you may or may not have if you route circuit boards. I mean, you know, hunting down burrs, you know, no matter, and I've done a lot of CNC routed circuit boards over the decades, and and they've all occasionally had that. Now, you know, a lot of times, you know, I used to use a little pointed file, you know, to trace around you know, trace around the contours, and if the circuit board's fairly well routed like my old ones used to be, you know, it's easy to dig those out that way without, even though back then still something like this would have been nice then too. But you know, since I got into these V-score routers, and you know, I'm trying to, you know, improve the resolution of everything that I can do, you know, that's why I kind of did a lot of these this way. But at any rate, wish I would have learned from my mistakes a little sooner. So anyway, cheers.